Hello guys, what's up? We are meeting in the 6th episode of the Red Carpet series, and today we have something really amazing. We have Mr. Kartik Mandaville joining us. So before I invite him today, in case you have any questions, comments, feedback, suggestions, whatever it might be, just leave it down in the chat and he will be answering your questions as well during the stream. And this is going to be interesting because we are going to touch on two interesting topics today: recruiting and blockchain. So both, one for the nerds around, one for the recruits, managers, and everyone who is looking for jobs at this difficult time, to actually see how does blockchain impact recruiting in a transformative way. That's what we are going to talk about today. And not just that, so he is a serial entrepreneur. So before I invite him onto the session, let me quickly show you his profile. So this is the red carpet where we pick the brain of awesome people, and this is Kartik Mandaville here, and this is his profile. So he is the CEO of Springworks. Before I introduce him, so this is his profile, and he has been working on a lot of blockchain startups. He has been a founder on different Facebook apps like Autobudder and Stockada. We'll be talking about that as well. And not just that, he has been a technical advisor for some good companies as well. So before we invite him, let me give you a quick 2-minute intro on what blockchain actually is, so that you get some context onto what we are actually discussing today. So if you see, what blockchain is all about is nothing but a distributed ledger of trusted data. So you have, let's say you have LinkedIn, you are a part of LinkedIn, you are a part of, a community which is actually controlled by a company, a central community which is LinkedIn. And you are also owning a bank account in your bank, and you have a central authority who is controlling all your transactions, your government who is controlling all the inflation. To avoid this centralization of all the data, you have a distributed system, and that's what blockchain is all about: taking the centralization out, distributing the control to all the people, and making it more secure, because it is all about trust and immutability of data. That's what blockchain is all about. If you want to read more, better go and refer YouTube. There are a lot of tutorials out there. Let me quickly introduce you to Kartik Mandaville. Hi. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I'm great. So so this has been a good time for meeting Kartik Mandaville, because we are meeting amidst COVID, where you have a lot of recruiting challenge around. So this is an interesting time for a recruiting company like yours. Before we get started out with the session, can we actually get an introduction to who Kartik Mandaville actually is?
Sure. So I graduated from Manipal with computer science in 2012. Did my first company during my third year, which is a Facebook application which kind of wishes you your friends happy birthday and then anniversaries and whatnot, right? So this is just I had my own personal problem. I made it literally for one person, which is me, right? No one else. And I put it out there, and guess what? Everyone wanted to use it. Went to around 4 million people, made a bunch of money, had never even registered a company, had no idea what is a startup, what is a company, what any of this means, right? But suddenly, people from US, UK, Australia, they're like, oh, this is perfect. It helps me connect with my friends, helps me, give me reminders on when their birthdays are coming up. I want to start paying for it. I'm like, why? And they're like, okay, no, this is actually saving time. So they started paying for it. So this was my first company. And then I went on to do masters in Carnegie Mellon, did that in machine learning and artificial intelligence, worked on IBM Watson, which is the world's first supercomputer to win a game show. From there, I started my second company as a thesis project, which is kind of match a job description with a candidate resume. And then since then, I have been doing that for over 6 years now. So started in 2014, set up the office in US, and then set up an office in India. So it's been almost 6 years. And then during this, I've started investing in other companies as an angel investor, and also started working with companies where I could contribute my time as an advisor on the technology side, and work with a VC fund out of Santa Monica, Los Angeles, to kind of help them advise on investments from a technology and a business perspective.
Nice. So actually, you have been playing a role as an entrepreneur, an investor, a technologist. So a lot of things to actually take into account. So what do you actually do at Springworks?
Yeah, so the role has changed over the last 6 years, right? Initially, I was coding. I remember I was, coding on the website, coding on the machine learning models. And then I think after a year or two, it was like, okay, now I have to learn, selling. The money is not going to come in, it's by itself, right? So I started learning the sales process. How do you talk to HRs? How do you talk to companies, whatnot, right? And after that, it was okay. Now I have to learn marketing, right? And then marketing, from a lead gen perspective, how do we generate leads, how do we get the word out there, how do we build a brand, right? And guess what, as we started scaling, I had to learn team building, right? Now, how do I become a good leader, right? And a good leader is not someone who can just say, okay, do this, do that, right? How do you empower people? How do you make sure your people are taken care of, right? How do you treat them with empathy, right? How do you build a culture where people are going to work with you? How do you build a culture where people will believe in you? They will work with you, not for you. They will work with you not for money, not for anything else, but because of the culture, because of the passion and interest. So right now, I do a bunch of things. I think of myself as a doer. What I think I end up doing is anything new which is happening, I try to kind of steer that forward, figure out a process, as in when we mature, like once we kind of reach from 0 to 1, right? Then we hire a person to kind of do that over and over again, right? Someone who's an expert who can do that much better than me. But from a 0 to 1 perspective, that is where I spend most of my time, and then the bigger chunk is just with the team and
So
customers.
you
So I try
delegate
to
as
do
much as possible.
100%, as in it's people. There are, in each field there are people who are way better than me, right? I'm a self-taught person, everything other than computer science. I don't have a degree, right? So there are people who are much better. I can take it to one, but after that you have to rely on experts to kind of take it forward.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. So why blockchain for recruiting? How do these two dots actually connect?
Sure. So we have been in the space for almost 6 years now. We wanted to help the HRs to kind of on background verification as well, right? How do you verify a person's background? How do you verify a person's resume? And right now, what happens is you get a job at Facebook. They will request a background verification. You fill up a 20-page form detailing every single information: your experience, your employment, your address, each and every reference contact, and then you work there for 2 to 3 years. You leave Facebook, you go join Google, you do the same process again, right? Even though it has been verified, you do the same process again, right? Even though Manipal has given you a certificate, you end up doing the same process, right? So there's a lot of repetitive work because there's no trust, right? Who do you trust? You're not trusting the person. That is why you're doing a background check. You're not trusting the resume. You're not trusting Manipal, because how do you know it is coming from the source? So this is where blockchain plays a key role, right? And as you described, what does blockchain do? Basically eliminates the need for trust. Like, that is all, right? Same thing for Bitcoin, same thing for real estate, same thing for resumes and background verification. So that is where it plays a key role of once it's verified, you don't have to keep doing it again and again, right? So saves a lot of time for the candidates and the company. And then finally, obviously, it saves money because you're not doing this again and again, right? So it kind of speeds up the entire HR recruiting process. So blockchain plays a key role. We've not yet seen the complete adoption of blockchain, across the world, but it's coming right now. Recently, U.S. government just authorized the banks to be a custodian of Bitcoin, right? That's a groundbreaking news, right? Which means you can now park your Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency at your bank. Like, that
In
is just
fact,
unimaginable.
yeah, in fact, that was the question I was coming to. When is the right time for Bitcoin, to actually make a transformative change in this world?
I think it was already making, right? Like, if you think about it, this started what, 10 years, 10, 12 years ago. And this was a person no one knows who this person is, right? Just put out a white paper, put out a piece of technology, just hope that will change the world. It has already changed, right? It is the single asset in this entire world which is not controlled by any entity, which is not which is completely traceable if needed. It's not like cash. If you withdraw from an ATM, I go give it to someone, there is no trace. Here it's completely traceable. There is no need for trust, no need for centralized authorities, right? So it has already changed a lot. But when do we get 7.5 billion people across the world using it? I think it's a matter of time, right? It isn't any new technology takes years, right? When telephones came up, when cars came up, right? It was like, why do we need cars? We are okay with riding on horses, right? Why do we need telephones, right? Why do we need planes? Any new technology, any new disruptive technology takes a while. Whereas takes 10 years to kind of get to the first phase, another 10-15 years go to the second phase, and let's see, right? I think internet has obviously sped up the adoption. I think it will continue to do that. So I'm very hopeful in the next few years we'll see a much bigger wave.
Definitely. So, in fact, in your space specifically, recruiting, where you are actually spending time verifying, trusted employees. I mean, you are verifying the background. You are doing an attestation
Correct.
of all the profiles. So, when you are
Yes.
doing this, how does it actually work when you don't have all the people who can actually attest? So, you need
Correct.
it's a chicken and egg problem, right? So, you need the people on the network to actually attest. Unless you have the people, you cannot go about expanding this blockchain to a huge scale. So how do you tackle this problem when you want all the peers along with you in the network?
Yeah. So that's a classic, marketplace problem where you have supply and demand, right? And here it's the same thing. Your kind of demand is to verify, supply is to who's verifying, right? So what we've done is have kind of trusted third parties kind of do the verification as a way to kickstart this. So it's not the ideal way, but it's a way to get there, right? It's like how you started Uber. Initially, Uber, all the cars you had were literally employees of Uber. The drivers were theirs, right? They own the cars, right? They started as a company with just black cars, right? And that's how they started that company. So you have to kind of kickstart the adoption for a while, and then slowly start kind of seeing that the adoption is increasing year by year, right? Which is what we are seeing, right? So we are focusing on, okay, our demand is a company wants to verify an X person. How do we make this happen? We use the network, we use the technology, and we use our trusted third parties.
Okay, so when you're talking about trusted third party, you are actually handing over some of the data to those trusted third parties. So doesn't it
Yeah.
make a sort of a data centralization system with all the data with them?
No, so trusted third party in our case is Spring Verify and a couple of providers. So
Okay.
it's not handing off any data. Here, what happens is you're asking, okay, Karthik is saying he studied at Manipal, he graduated in the year 2012. Is that accurate? So that is something already publicly visible on my profile, right? It's on my LinkedIn, it's on my resume, it's everywhere, right? So then Spring Verify goes to Manipal and verifies that information and certifies that. So in an ideal world, Manipal itself will be certifying it, but we are not yet there, right? Now it will take
Definitely.
kind of years or months to kind of get universities and companies, everyone to be on this platform, but it's just a matter of time.
Definitely. So, in fact, when you're talking about blockchain, one of the things people actually relate to closely is Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrency for that matter. So, in
Yeah.
fact, I read about a lot of blogs and there is a lot of, what do you say, mistrust over Bitcoin. There is a lot of
Yeah.
scam happening in Bitcoin and even
Yeah.
ICOs. In fact, I guess you did your ICO successfully on 2018, but now
Yeah.
the state has changed where there are a lot of ICO scams happening. In fact, I read that 80% of ICOs are scams.
Yeah.
So how do you deal with such anti-trust in place, and which is indirectly impacting the trust with blockchain as well? How do you deal with the market responding negatively because of Bitcoin?
Sure. So I don't think it's because of Bitcoin. I think in the sad part of the world we live in is that wherever there is money to be made wherever there's a there is some divide in the information, right? There are some people who have more information and then they think they can exploit, and they've done it multiple times. We kind of see these scams come up, right, which kind of destroy or negatively impact the technology at play, right? Bitcoin's technology is blockchain, right? So Bitcoin, there are people who will use Bitcoin for wrong reasons, right? We see the same thing with rupees, right? Do not all the scams and majority of the crimes happen with dollars and rupees? Yeah, they happen, right? It's not that okay, no, like 90% of crime is happening through dollars. We're going to stop using dollar, right? That this is not the case, right? Here it's actually more traceable, right? So it's actually much better. I think it's kind of catch up game by the regulators, and it's a lot of education from the people in the crypto space, people in the blockchain space, on what the technology is, how should it be used, what is the advantage, and how what is the right way to kind of identify scams, right? There will be scams in any new technology, right? We had AI, there were scams. We had this entire thing about facial recognition, fingerprint, there were scams again, right? There were these apps which came up from Russia, China, whatnot, which was saying okay, we are you they were using this app to kind of build their database of all the faces, right? So there will always be people and entities kind of using new types of technology to for malicious reasons. I think it's upon us, us as an individually and the entire community to educate others that okay, this is not the right thing, this is how we should be careful, and this is what we should focus on. So it's a matter of education, and we will it's just something which you have to do with you have to bear with any new piece of technology.
So that's actually right, because as I see, the two important barriers for blockchain, coming to the next level would be one, education. Of course, people don't know about blockchain; it's something new. And second is the government, lack of government support, where people actually want to centralize the
Yeah.
data because they want to have all the control. So when you have the government, in fact, I read a news just recently. In fact, I was wondering that COVID wouldn't impact the Bitcoin price, the Ethereum price. But what rather happened was COVID came and Bitcoin price fell down. So isn't that contrary to the belief that these market conditions would actually not affect Bitcoin? Because the reason they gave for Bitcoin price falling down was that the government basically inflate. I mean they devalued the currencies, and then because of all that, a chain of events triggered the Bitcoin price to actually fall down. So shouldn't this not be the case? I mean, should this not be the case for Bitcoin?
Sure. So when something as serious as COVID happens, when this is the first time a pandemic of this scale has happened in our lifetime, right? Something which no one has seen, something which has taken up the entire world. People are dying, people are getting sick. What is the first thing you do? You want to be making sure that you are safe. You want to make sure that your money is safe. And what is the safest way, right? Which is you trust your bank, or you trust kind of withdraw, and you trust in gold, or you trust in the assets you already have, right? So you kind of start taking out money from other more riskier assets, right? Which are equity, which are stocks, derivatives, real estate, Bitcoin, all of these, right? So this is just human nature, right? Whenever as things like this happens, you kind of start relying on your own, right? But at the same time, as you have seen in the last few months, it has come back. The price has mostly come back. I'm definitely not an expert in this area, but Bitcoin started when the entire world had a financial crisis, right? When the US had a financial crisis, and that is when it started as an alternative currency, right? So this is yet to be seen on what is the price correlation, but all said and done, right, it is still very, very early stages, for Bitcoin's price. For anyone to speculate, okay, is it related to this? Will it go up? Will it go down? Because it's still very early stage, right? It's not as decentralized as it should be, right? So I think it will take a while for it to be completely adopted, for it to be completely decentralized, and then probably it will kind of fulfill its own goal.
So, in fact, I am optimistic about that, like you, but hopefully it happens. So, coming back to your startup, so you
Yeah.
have had a series of startups and experiences. In fact, the first time I came to know about you was through Autobudder. I had used it myself, and that's how I came to know about you in Manipal. So, how has the experience been, and what is the most difficult challenge you have faced thus far?
Sure. So experience has been, wonderful at the very least. When I started Autobudder, I had no backers. No one believed in the vision. Actually, I didn't have a vision, so no one believed in the idea. People were like, "What is this? Who's going to use it? Like, why does it even make sense?" Right? So just had no one to support, and be it friends, teachers, parents, whatnot, right? So uh, I think, and then just kept on doing it, right? It was the continuous patience and perseverance. It was like, okay, I just want to solve it. It just feels fun, right? It just feels the natural thing to do, right? You just have this gut feeling somewhere that you want to do this, right? I think that is more important than anything else, especially in an entrepreneurship journey, right? You have to trust yourself, right? At the end of the day, finally, the only person who's going to be doing this is you, right? No matter how many co-founders you have, how many investors you have, how many friends you have, it's finally you, right? Because no one understands this as deep as you, right? So yeah, I started this small app in 2011, 2012, I think. Had a couple of people support, and then started going bigger from there. And then started this company in 2014. We had almost a death kind of a situation in 2015, which is when I also decided to move back to India. I had pretty much the entire team I had from CMU, and the people we had hired had left. I was literally the only person in the company, and that is when you realize this is just you, right? You have to have that conviction, and that this is something you set out to do. If you have that conviction and passion, keep going, right? So I think that has been the biggest challenge. Like, how do fall, but at the same time have enough strength to get up, right? And each fall makes you only stronger, right? There's a saying, right? Whatever doesn't make you, doesn't kind of hurt you enough to die, only makes you stronger, right? As long as you have that conviction, as long as you have that gut feeling, as long as you have the patience, the perseverance, what it takes to see, why not, right? I think we are in this world of technology. We're so blessed and fortunate to be having this access of technology, having this access of network, having personally, like people like me who have computer science knowledge, others who could learn computer science on their own, start a company sitting in India, having customers all over the world, right? It's crazy, right? Yesterday, one of my first games I'd ever played was this robot game in my class 5, class 6. This was by Electronic Arts, right? And I was like, wow, this is the company I want to work in, right? This is my dream. I was just this young kid fascinated by games and computer games. I just loved them, right? And yesterday they signed up to be a customer just organically.
Nice.
Electronic Arts just sign. I'm like, wow, this is my fanboy moment. If I could go back in time, tell tell the 11, 12-year old Karthik that this one day you will have this company as your customer, like nothing would have made more sense. So it's crazy how things happen. So sometimes all you have to do is trust, and keep going.
Yeah, talking about having the trust, having the momentum to keep going. So, in fact, how did you make sure that your team built up the trust on you? How did you convey whatever vision you have, and how did you find the right people to build out your vision as a product in your startup?
Yeah, so team is very, very important, right? Especially as an early stage company, or even up to like a certain strength, 150, 200 people, the team is very important. So how do you build it is you talk to them, you talk to them once, twice, three times, four times, five times. You try to build that relationship, right? Before, signing off on something, before, finalizing on something. Because, at the end of the day, we spend so much time on work and we spend so much time with the people we work, right? How do you, have that trust in that person? How does that person have the trust in you, right? So this just takes time. And, you may not gel with everyone in the world, but guess what? You just need to gel with a few people to, build a company, right? It's not that you have to gel with every single candidate you meet. Maybe they are the best experts. Maybe, they work very well with someone else, but maybe not you, right? So it's a lot of culture, a lot of personality, a lot of kind of dedication, whatnot. So it really depends, right? I don't think there's any formula, right? Everyone has their own formula, right? You talk, as in when you're hiring, you talk to a bunch of people, you reach out to your network, and you start, kind of having a very genuine relationship with them. And you figure out, okay, this makes sense, we would like to work with this person, the person agrees, and you take it from there.
Yep. So, in fact, it's, you are actually, in fact, I remember Vinay working with you on a lot of products like this. So, in fact, I see that you are a highly gel team. I even saw the insane
Yeah.
number of advisor you have. So, yeah, it's a huge team to actually have, huge and quality team. So now,
Yeah,
one,
and Vinay, sorry, just one
yeah,
thing
yeah,
there.
yeah.
So Vinay has been, with me like from 2010. Like it's crazy. This is the first company I joined as an intern. I got promoted as a CTO. From intern to tech lead to CTO. I hired Vinay as an intern. Then he became the, tech lead, and then he became the CTO after I left. And then since then, we've been together for more than 10 years, and he's moved cities. He's moved from Bangalore to a different city. He's moved back to his, parents,
Bonded for life.
and he still works. Right? It's just crazy. And for the first, I think, 4 years, we had never even met in person, but we had done so much work together because the trust is there, right? I know that, when I'm talking to Vinay, he has the trust in me. I know when, if we're working on something together, if he's saying something, then I have that trust in him, right? So that trust takes time to build, and as long as you're doing it genuinely, then I think people respect and, work with you.
Yeah, it's like you have a blockchain network between both of you. Anyways, so now talking about your startup and now it's your startup is mainly a recruiting based startup. So you are verifying and attesting for recruiting industry. And in this time of COVID, a lot of recruiting has actually paused and it has taken a huge hit. So how is this affecting your industry, and how are you actually going to face this challenge as a startup?
Yeah, so definitely recruiting worldwide has taken a big hit. Companies are focusing less on hiring and more on employee retention. There are numerous reports, to support this. So we've also kind of, in the last 4 months, we've also kind of focused more on the employee retention than the hiring part of it. So things like, how do you build engagement? How do you build rewards recognition? How do you build a culture where, employees are most productive? How does the new HR role, get defined, right? We are not in the office anymore. How do you make sure that the new employees who've joined and the existing employees are there are gelling well with each other? How do you kind of build those work relationships, right? Earlier, when it was in the office, you would do intros, you would do like, evening chai, evening kind of snacks, maybe you celebrate birthdays, whatnot. How does all of that work in this new remote world, right? So I think there is actually an increased focus on employee retention, employee productivity from every company in this world, right? Not just startups, not just enterprises. Everyone is focusing more on this. The first, lockdown, first 3 weeks, first 4 weeks, we were like, okay, this is not part time, this is short term, we will get back to normal life. But now people are realizing, oh, this is the new normal, we just have to live with it, right? How does the HR role get defined, and how the HR is no longer a person in the office, facilitating, doing all the, challenging logistics, all of that, right? What do they do in this new age, right? What is required from them, and how do they execute that, right? So this is why a lot of focus on the employee retention part of it, not, the employee hiring. But yeah, recruiting has definitely taken a hit overall. There are companies which have laid off employees. There are companies which have say kind of delay the offer letters, delayed joinings. It's just a matter of the economy, right? The different reports say the Indian economy will, contract. The world economy will also contract. So it's just a very bad time to be in this world.
Maybe the world will get better. Maybe something has to hit rock bottom before something transformative happens. So, like what you actually said, you have to first come down and then bounce back. So, hope that happens to the world as well. So now, there is an interesting question I had, a few days back. I have been reading about a lot of, data localization laws, all around the place from Russia, China, and recently Brazil as well.
Correct.
So with all the data localization laws in place, and when you are talking about blockchain distributing the data, how do these two things actually correlate? In fact, can you actually use a blockchain network when there are localization laws in place?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And this has been kind of talked a lot about in the GDPR world. So what happens, I'm definitely not an expert here, but generally what happens is, these data localization, data privacy laws are around storing the data in, countries other than, where the person is from. And what blockchain does, it's most of the times it's not actually storing the data, right? It's storing the transaction, storing the confirmation, storing the attestation of that, and which is fine. And blockchain is actually a step further, because right now, if Google is saying we are storing your data in India, how do you verify? There's no way for you to verify, right? They could say that, but they could store it in some other country. How do you even verify? The government cannot verify. Then security company will never have the access to all their servers. How does anyone verify? Blockchain is the first technology in this world which lets you verify. If a piece of data is being stored and saved and hashed, or as the confirmation, you yourself have the keys, because it's securely encrypted with your cryptographic keys, and that's mathematically proven. So no one in the world has access to it except you, right? So that is why it's trustless. So you don't need to trust us, you don't need to trust the government, you don't need to trust anyone. Well, this actually, I think it's a step further from all these laws, which is, okay, laws are there, but how do you even execute, right? This is actually an execution of those laws, which is making sure the data is not going anywhere, like anywhere except from your computer.
So, in fact, which makes that you can actually. I was even wondering whether you can actually put distributed blockchain networks in different regions, but I'm not sure about that. Anyways, that is for a different day. But one last question I had is that you had Spring Roll initially, when you were actually building the startup, and then you scaled it up to had Spring Hire, Spring Verify, and then a few other things as well to your portfolio. So why did you actually is it a pivot, or is it something which is part of your agenda?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is, we had this product, and we started building an employer background verification product. We needed a different brand. If we had the same name, people were getting confused. Oh, I go on springroll.com, I see this, I see that. Where is the employer sign up, right? So they were confused. They were sending in mixed signals. These are kind of using the same underlying technology but solving different outcomes, right? These have different challenges, right? One is background verification, one is applicant tracking, other is employee engagement, other is recruiting. So these are kind of different kind of brands, different all inside the same umbrella, kind of talking to the same customer, like HR, CEO, CTO, and then finally the candidate, right? So just the different kind of brands to make it easier, for having to sell to an actual HR, right? And so they don't get confused by what is this, what is that, right? So it makes it easier for them.
Makes sense. So, thank you for joining. Just one question to end the session with. So, what's next for Karthik?
Next is to keep growing this, kind of reach. We right now we're mostly in US and India, expanding in these two countries, helping kind of people land better jobs, helping HRs and companies hire better people faster.
So scaling up from here to and at least battling the COVID world. So there are a lot to do. Anyway, so thank you for joining today. So viewers, I hope this was a useful session. And next session we'll be joined by Ms. Sahiba Sethi, founder of Hello Meets. And I would like to invite you for that session as well. It's going to be on Saturday at 9 p.m. IST. So yeah, thank you and good night. Bye bye. Thank you.